Hello, and welcome back to Fantasy Turf War, the ultimate showdown where 64 teams battle head to head for fantasy football glory. This is episode 30, and I'm your host, Lauren, and with me are resident experts Matt, Ane, and Cory Bassett.
All right.
There we go.
And
Set up.
how you doing, guys?
Swear I just checked all this. Oh well. Always happens. Every time. I'm going to my room.
All right, well, Matt, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Hey. Yeah, hey, I'm Matt. I'm going to be your stats guy today. It's going to be a great show. I'm pretty hyped.
And
Cory?
I'm
Commissioner Cory?
Yeah, I'm the commissioner of Fantasy Turf War, all-around button messer-upper, and excited for tonight's show. So let's get it.
All right, thanks, guys. So now before we get started, we're trying to do something new here. So if you like this idea of a 64-team league, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Your support is crucial to keeping this show going, and it means the world to us. Plus, we have contests lined up once we hit 100 subscribers, so you won't want to miss on that. And I believe Cory has a couple of quick announcements to make. So, Cory?
Last night we aired our divisions determination episode, so go check that out. We have locked in all 64 teams, as we mentioned last week on the show. So we have all 64, and we now have all the divisions that everyone's going to be in. After looking at all four of them, I don't see one division that sticks out to me over the other, which is not good for anybody in the league. I think it's going to be a pretty big challenge for everybody, but we are now working on scheduling the drafts, which is, the usual coordination nightmare that the drafts always are. But we're working through it, and we will have the draft order released soon for everybody as well. We have our entire library that we've made available on Spotify and Amazon Music, so you can take it in audio format wherever you want to go, download it, take it with you. Everything else is up on both platforms, and this episode will be up first thing tomorrow morning. And we usually highlight that we had crossed a certain amount of threshold for views, and so we did cross the 900 threshold, and it looks like we're going to cross the 1,000 threshold overnight. So, congratulations to everyone on the team, and thank you to you at home for tuning in and giving us a chance to try and do something new here. So we appreciate it, and it's not possible without you, so we wanted to thank you. I do have one quick scheduling note, and I'm just going to read it so I don't mess it up. Tomorrow night's episode will be aired at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, but it's going to be pre-recorded, and that is because I'm going to be traveling to Anaheim for the weekend. I'm going to go help out my mentor. His name's Lou Mongello. We're working a biannual Disney convention, and we put out a bunch of content and things like that. So it's a good networking thing for me, and I'll be out there again this year. If you happen to be coming out that way, let me know. Follow me on WW Radio is the name of the show. Find me on all my socials and follow along there. If you're actually going out there, let me know as well. We'll try and meet up or something, grab a drink. I did have one surprise for everyone else on the show as well, and I just skipped over it because I deliberately didn't write it in the script for these guys. So I said we are on Spotify and Apple Music, but that is partially true because as of this afternoon, we are now on Apple Podcasts. So we are now fully published on Apple Podcasts. You can take that with you. Wherever you go on your iPhones. Go to the podcast app, download it right there, and now you have that there as well. So we are now on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can think to listen. And it's exciting stuff. It took a little extra work to get the Apple thing done, but we did it. And we're really starting to hit our stride here, and we finally nailed down the 64 teams. And it's something crazy, something we're trying to do. And if you think it's cool, think it's interesting, if you find it entertaining, we're taking all feedback, and we appreciate all your support. And all we ask that you do is hit the like button, subscribe, and bring one friend next time. And that's it. And then that's all we ask of you. And just enjoy the content. And back to you, Lauren.
I'm excited about the Apple Podcast thing. We didn't know about that.
It took forever.
Yeah, we talked about the difficulties of it last week, but I'm glad that that's now figured out. Well, all right. So just hopping right into it. Like we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we've been diving into specific offensive positions and kind of giving our opinion on who we think you should draft and who you shouldn't draft. So this week we'll be doing wide receiver. So tonight we're going to go from the ADP rank of 20 down to 11. And then tomorrow we're going from 10 down to 1. So pay attention tomorrow too, because that one I feel like will be a little more opinionated than tonight's episode. And with that being said, this gives us the time to cover the players adequately and gives you at home more information heading into your drafts. So, in saying that, drum roll, Matt, who's at 20.
All right. So this is a surprising one for me, and I'm actually like I'm a little excited the fact that he's sitting there at 20, but I don't think it's going to be there for that much longer. And that's DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. Sorry, brain fart there. It's kind of wild because I feel like everybody's sleeping on him. I mean, it's just another year with Geno Smith. It's another year with that offense, new offensive coordinator. Carroll's gone. So if anything, that just means better days because Carroll is an old school football coach. It's just run and punch him in defense. Now they got the new coach in there. Things should be brighter on the passing end side. He still finished at, wide receiver 16 last year, finished with 192 points. Played 16 games out of 17. Pretty happy about that. Averaged about 12 points per game. Had 119 targets. Only came down with 66, though. Hopefully that comes up. Uh, you know, Still finished with 1,114 yards. Had 8 touchdowns. And you know what? That's pretty stellar. Honestly, you look at it and you just go, okay, like cool. Like, DK Metcalf, is he going to be somebody that's going to be reliable you know, week in and week out? And ultimately, yes and no. So, like, he has boom bust potential, right? 46% of the time last year, he finished as a top 24, and only 20% of the time as wide receiver one. The upside is capped to finish at that wide receiver one spot just because of, who's throwing him the ball. And I think the lack of offensive talent on that team, hopefully they have a better, new players and new pieces next year that can kind of increase it. But dude's still 26, still in his prime. And you know what? You will get the return on the draft price, at least the fact that, 46% of the time finishing as top 24 and 20% of the time finishing, as a number one wide receiver. So that really only leaves about like, my math is probably bad on this one. 24% of the time where he might finish outside of that, and that's okay. All wide receivers deal with that, right? They're a little they rely more on their quarterback getting the ball if they're playing a good defense, things like this that play more of a factor than like running backs, for instance, that have guaranteed production week in and week out because a guy's going to get 20 carries a game versus you pray that your guy not only gets the 10 targets but in addition catchable passes and on top of that a lighter cover or a good cover or pretty much a defense they can expose and they play that versus man or zone, things like that. It all kind of come into play when you're playing with a counting on a wide receiver. So ultimately, DK Metcalf has the potential just to live up to his draft price, but in addition, the one upside to finish as a wide receiver one if everything kind of goes right. So I love DK Metcalf. Price is just right. I'm pretty much drafting him everywhere if he's sitting on the board.
Yeah, good. So my concern with him is, like you said, the quarterback position, having to rely on Geno to get him the ball all the time. I'm not sure that that's consistent enough production that you feel good about it. But like you said, it's also for the price at the 20 mark. I feel okay with it. He's a very physical athlete, so. Is he capable? Absolutely. But like I said, it's that boomer bust. So I think looking at him from a wide receiver 20 perspective, I think I'm good with it. I also would be a little bit concerned with target share with Lockett, but not so much, just because he's proven to be effective before.
No, I agree. I don't have a whole lot to say about him. In my little notes that I took, I am surprised, like Matt said, that he's at number 20. It's just someone I expected not to be further up the list necessarily, but I feel like he's kind of not forgotten about, but like kind of disregarded. At least more recently. And then just like a random stat that I saw, and I know it's technically like it's peer voted, so all the NFL players vote on it. But he was voted number 84 out of 100 or the top 100 NFL players based on their own opinions. Um, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I figured him to be closer to like the 50s or even in the 100s. But I just thought it was interesting. And then I saw something about him potentially being traded to the Steelers, and I was like, wait, there's like rumors about that and whatnot, which I think is interesting. But I do think, again, like Matt said, it's another year under Geno, and like, can he do it? Can he not? We'll
Yeah.
see. That's what 2024 is about.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All great points, guys. I think if we're good, we're going to move on. Talk about this other guy here, Stephon Diggs of now the Houston. God, I'm having brain farts. Oh,
Texans.
Texans. Thank you. Houston Texans no longer with Buffalo. Buffalo pretty much ran him out of town, and it's an interesting landing spot. I really feel like he's going to be the three. Buffalo kind of in the second half, or like pretty much at some point during the season said like, yo, you're really not the centerpiece of this offense anymore. And, we're going to kind of like, get away from you. And that's what they did. They started, making other moves, whether it was on the ground or just passing to somebody else. Clearly was said too when they traded him away. Guy's going to be what now? 30 years old, going on 31. And it's not a great scenario when they go to a new team. Somebody brought up a great stat on another show where they were talking about guys that move to a new team around like past age 29, and it's never a good thing. You talk about all these different players that have done it, and it's kind of just like it's ugly. They don't really live up to the expectation, and I think that's where it's going to be. Now, the one good thing is he doesn't have to be the one on this team. If they move in the slot, there's going to be fantasy production. But I also don't like the draft price. So here's where it is with Stephon Diggs. Him being the 19th wide receiver, pick 37 overall. Um, I am just going to avoid him at all costs unless he falls a little bit lower. If he falls into like the wide receiver 3 category where you're picking him at like the 26, 27, 28th wide receiver off the board, I'd be much happier with that. But I'm going to try and avoid him like the plague and kind of just say, yo, I'd rather him have a good season on somebody else's team than have a bad season on mine.
Yeah, fair point. And I agree that his age would be my concern, especially when you're switching teams. It doesn't usually end up well. My concern would be is he able to pick up the offense, and then does he actually live up to the price? I don't like it. I think he's got a great ability to catch the ball. It seems like he's got a pretty consistent floor there. At least he did in Buffalo. But my concern would, yeah, I'm really not touching Stephon Diggs at all, which sucks to hear because like he used to be such a highlight to everyone's team, and he's just not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the only point I kind of have is he's one of those names that you recognize. You're like, oh, Stephon Diggs. Like, oh, I could draft him. But I think if you don't know and haven't done your research, it's like when I first ever started playing fantasy football and I recognized names like Marshawn Lynch, where I was like, oh, I know this name. Like, he has to be good. And it was when he was so bad. But I got tricked into the drafting somebody for their name kind of thing. Um,
Like
yeah,
Bus
I
Boy.
agree. Looking at the fact that he's going into his 10th year is kind of scary to look at.
Yeah, and like Matt was saying, you'd almost rather be a year late than wrong. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
pick him up this year and then find out I was wrong. I'd rather be wrong this year and pick him up next year because I made a mistake.
Yeah. There's always a right price, right? Like, if they fall to a certain point, it's like, okay, then they're worth the risk. But this is too rich for my blood. That's like,
Yeah.
do I pay my mortgage or do I buy this Louis bag? And obviously you're not choosing the Louis bag. Maybe Lauren will, but I don't know.
No.
No, good choice. But yeah, Stephon Diggs is not my thing. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be an interesting season. He had a fantastic season, and quite honestly, everything I thought he would be. But the problem I have with him is now he has Anthony Richardson throwing to him full time, and that's where things kind of get a little murky. Richardson really didn't have a rookie season. He played what 3-4 games. So, you look at it and go, okay, what is his true upside? Can Anthony Richardson really be successful through the air? Is he just more of a running guy? It may even take like a half season for him to even get on board with the passing game. And usually rookie quarterbacks rely on their tight ends. You know, is he going to be able to make the over the shoulder passes? Is he going to be able to make any kind of the important passes that really where Pittman has been successful? The 50-50 balls, the big plays, things like that in the end zone. And again, the end zone is going to be taken away from him too because Richardson's going to be active on his feet. So then, you know, the measly four receiving touchdowns that Pittman got last year could be very easily be none. And then you take out literally, a small chunk of his points, and it's like, okay, cool, dude. Like, why did I draft you? There's no touchdown upside. Yes, you had 1,152 yards last year and 109 receptions, but I think that all comes down. He'll be lucky if he gets 100 targets there and comes down with like 75, and then he's really in the wide receiver, you know, three category or four. So he's another one like, it's a little murky when it comes to wide receivers, and he's one at all costs, just based off of everything and all the unknowns surrounding that team.
Yeah, I honestly feel like with the first couple rankings and from like the 20 down to I would say 17, I feel like you can swap and all that kind of stuff, or maybe take one from like number 24 and swap them. It's just kind of, I feel like the opinion of whoever is making these lists and how they're feeling that specific day, because all these guys are moving up and down. I agree. Looking at Pittman stats, I'm not too confident in it. And even like I tried looking up of how other people were feeling in like training camps and whatnot and what they were saying. And literally the only quote that I could find was ultimate safety net, but I don't see a safety net. Like I see you he puts up a good amount of yards, and like that's depending on what league you're in and how that's going to affect you, but like the output of 4 touchdowns total doesn't make me confident drafting him as like my second wide receiver. So,
Hmm. All right. Well, I kind of disagree with you guys there, but I don't know if it's partly because of my all in on Richardson, but so a lot of the success of a wide receiver comes down to the quarterback, right? So if you believe in the receiver, you almost have to believe in the quarterback as well to some extent, because if the quarterback's not producing, then neither are they. And so what I look to for Pittman is that he's a big body receiver, right? So he's great at catching the contested catches. He's not a speed target, but he gets a lot of red zone shares. So I like that, especially when I'm looking at a PPR league or anything like that. When it comes to Richardson, if you believe that he's going to hinder the ability, then you also would have to believe that the defenses are going to try and stop that. And if the defenses are going to stop that, then he's going to have to throw it again. And so I think their potential is there. I think if I had to pick Pittman or let's see, what was the other name again, or Stephon Diggs, I feel much comfortable picking Pittman. Although I might actually take DK Metcalf over Pittman, but I do like the ability there. And if you believe in the offense being able to produce, one way or the other, he's going to have to get the ball. So it time will tell. But I think I'm less hesitant on him than I am with Stephon Diggs.
I hear you. If it's those two on the board and that's pretty much my best options, obviously you're gonna smash Pittman. So in those regards, I completely agree. But if I could avoid both at all costs, I probably will. This next guy, though, I'm like, he's a tasty little pick, and that's Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. Like, he is somebody that honestly I feel is being undervalued. Last year he was being drafted as like the 13th wide receiver, and he gets hurt quite a bit this past year, and really just doesn't really live up to the hype, right? Like, yes, he played. You see it like he played quite a few games, and it was a little up and down, but he also was hurt for a good chunk of this. He was still playing hurt, would come off, come on, come off, come on, and whatnot. And I feel like what you look at it, and okay, it really doesn't speak to what he's been doing in his career, even though this is his third year. 2022 finishes wide receiver 7. His rookie year finishes wide receiver 16. He still managed to have 72 receptions with 1,000 yards. The touchdowns really were where you were just like, okay, I wish that happened a little bit more. He had 4. You know, all he needed, truthfully, was 4 more touchdowns for you to feel a little bit more. Probably would have bumped him up to wide receiver 25, and we'd be having a little bit more of a light on him and be like, okay, this kid's got upside. But because the touchdowns didn't come through. It's one of those things where you're just like, okay, cool. Like, okay, I don't feel as confident. But here's the thing, though. You look at him in the red zone, and he gets 5.6. I'm sorry, he gets 7.7 targets in the red zone. Um, he gets about 4.8% of the targets from within 10, and then with 5, I don't actually have that stats. Won't scooch over for me, but ultimately, that's a good percentage of targets in the red zone, and that's all you really need to be successful as a wide receiver. So if those numbers even double in terms of touchdowns, we're going to be talking pretty big things about him. He could probably finish anywhere from like wide receiver 15 to wide receiver 7 for that matter. Waddle has wild upside. If he could just stay healthy and let the game come to him, him and Tyreek Hill and A-Chain are going to be a very dangerous team there. And Waddle should benefit from all that fast paced offense. I'm drafting him literally everywhere I can.
It's a hot take
I'm
there.
surprised by this. I'm surprised by this
Really?
take.
I
I literally
Good.
have "doesn't excite me" written down next to Jalen Waddle.
Wow.
Which, oh my, don't crucify me, please. And I also have written down, I want to ask, if you were, well, I think I know my answer now. If you were to choose between Jalen Waddle or Michael Pittman, but I think I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely Waddle for that matter. If you're talking, risk reward kind of type deal, Waddle has a way more upside in terms of finishing, way higher probability of finishing as a wide receiver 1 than Pittman does in those aspects.
Yeah, and so one of the things that excites me about Waddle, and I'll say I'm like, Matt is hot, Lauren is cold, so I'll say I'm lukewarm. Is the right answer there. But
Oh man.
what's exciting is that he's fast. He's very very fast, and that I think his only downside is target share with Tyreek Hill. I think, but that's also a benefit, right? Because if that didn't exist, then maybe he's getting double covered, something like that. But I don't think I would pick any of the other folks that we talked about today before I pick Waddle. I'm kind of all in just because the speed's there, the opportunity's there in a system that's already up and running. I like everything I see. Yeah, injury pending. I think I'm all in on that.
Fair enough. Now, I think we kind of like buried the lead with this guy coming up. It's Brandon Ayuk of some team, because he's not going to be on the San Francisco 49ers for much longer. There's the two trades that are pretty much up at the top right now are essentially New England and the Browns. They're talking about the Browns giving up Amari Cooper and a fourth and etc. And I'm leaning that deal isn't going to happen because they're pretty much making a parallel move. Yes, they're getting the younger player, but they have to pay this dude, and where they could still ride on Amari Cooper and then decide later, especially if they might be in a full blown reboot in a year or two. Then you got the Patriots, who are offering Bourne a first, I think a third. Like, that's the better deal too. And on top of that, Bourne is still young. Bourne's a little bit better in terms of you know, you're not going to have to pay him anytime soon. And then in addition to, like, if he doesn't work out, they drafted a wide receiver in the to kind of fill this void anyway, because I think they knew that Ayuk wasn't going to be there by week 1. So this is good. Good for the 49ers as a whole. It's really bad for either outcome, in my opinion, for Ayuk in terms of fantasy perspective, right? Um, okay, where is the true fantasy production really going to come from? Because I don't see a path. And then maybe things are a little bit better if he goes to Cleveland, right? Like, hmm. Well, let's look at what Amari Cooper did last year. He finished as a wide receiver 18. Now, those are great, and I think Ayuk honestly is a better wide receiver at the end of the day. But you're going to be on a new offense, new team coming in probably midway through by the time they get the deal done through training camp. So there's going to be some, a learning curve in the new offense where Amari Cooper has pretty much just been in the offense, has that connection with Watson. So, like, I think that it may take time to get going, which then may hurt the early production. And with fantasy football, you're limited, right? You got 5, 6 weeks max where you can kind of really struggle before being completely out of your league and then done. So when I'm approaching Ayuk is I'm gonna let him slip, and then I'll probably trade for later, and he'll be a great buy low come week 1 or 2 versus me trying to draft him at this price where he's going off the board as literally the 16th wide receiver and pick 29, which puts you literally at the beginning of round 3 in 12-man leagues.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? And then I was googling while you were talking because I thought I had read this morning that if there was a deal with the Browns, Cooper would not be part of the deal, and then I just googled it and I found a bunch more that said the exact opposite. So now I also have no idea where he's going to end up. It's almost like you have to address it on three different fronts, right? If he stays, if he goes to one or goes to the other, and at that point, that's too much energy on a receiver for me. I'd probably just again, I'd rather wait, buy low, and pick him up later. And I'll pick up something I can rely a little bit more on because if he switches systems, you have absolutely no idea how productive he's going to be. Then you take into all these things into account of, how productive is he going to be? How is he age wise? Does that make a difference? Like all that stuff plays into it. Not to mention he'd be going from a West Coast team to a Midwest or an East Coast team, and so you're talking about switching climates, time zones. Like that's a huge deal, and I would just have no way or no will to quantify that. So I would be I'll be another week behind on that guy.
Um, I I like him, but I'm in the same sense of like I don't like not knowing where you're gonna be because you don't know what kind of offense you're gonna play for. And I mean, obviously his statistics from 2023 are very decent, solid, and he doesn't have like a huge history with injuries to make you like worry about him being 26 and like maybe he had a few seasons of like string injuries, but he didn't. I think the only issue, and I think the reason why he's at 16 and not lower is literally the contract issue of just like not knowing where he's going to be. Because, yeah, like his numbers are solid. So,
Yeah, but play that game, right? So for both of you, if he goes to New England, is his value worth it where he's at?
No, I avoid him at all costs.
I don't
Um,
like New England. No. So, no.
And then I
I
guess
have
the same.
no respect and or good judgment toward New England, so I have no opinion for that one. But
All right.
do I think if he went to the Browns, would there be a change? Um, I think he fits better in the 49ers than he would in the teams that he's being talked about being traded to, in my opinion. Um, I
Yeah,
think if he was being considered to stay at the 49ers, he would be at a lower rank than 16.
I'd probably agree, right? I think he's probably the highest he's going to be potential wise. He has a better potential in San Francisco than he does in Cleveland or New England, and so that in that sense, if he's switching teams, I have no idea where to even put him. And again, I'd rather just wait to figure out where he kind of lands than to play the risk game. And it's like you said, Matt, you only have so many games you can mess up in fantasy football before it's just too late. You can't make a comeback.
Amen. All right. So this next guy is fun, and I feel like he's a safety net at this point, and I love him just based off of the fact that everybody underestimates him every single year, and that's Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's going off the board as wide receiver, pick 31 overall in the third round, and I like the price. Mike Evans in his career entirely has never finished with under 1,000 yards. He has not finished as on a season under the lowest season he had is wide receiver 24, and that was in 2015. Since then, the lowest he's been is wide receiver 18. Mike Evans, doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. Obviously, we prefer Tom Brady than Baker Mayfield, but doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. He is successful. He is a guy that's just going to come down with passes, whether they're catchable or not. And honestly, this is a fair price. You're drafting him pretty much at his floor. there's a ceiling play of him being, a top 10 receiver like he did last year, which we all did not see coming. But Baker loves to sling the ball, and it's the perfect guy to, get the most fantasy production out of Mike Evans. You want to take shots down the field, you want to, you know, put a guy, throw it in the little hole and pray that your wide receiver comes down. If I'm throwing it to Mike Evans, there's a good chance that's going to happen. So when it comes to Mike Evans, I feel like he's a slam pick. Don't be scared of him. Yes, he's a little bit on the older side. And, I usually speak illy of guys going to be 31 years old. But you know what? He's one of those guys where I feel like he's got another year, maybe two left before we really start seeing the breakdown. It's not like he's being asked to completely carry the team. He's a great wide receiver. I think this, you know, it will pretty much have a good season out of him no matter what. Obviously, there is, and it sounds like I'm hedging mid. There is risk because of his age, but I'm overlooking it because of the consistency of his whole career. And if we didn't see it at age 30, the negative regression can't be that drastic at this point. So Mike Evans, I think, is a slam dunk pick this year.
No, I fully agree. When we talked about running backs, I brought this up when talking about Rashad White, that Mike Evans is just like the ultimate powerhouse of that offense. And he is the one that's receiving all the touchdowns and all the scores and all the things. And I think it's going to continue. And yeah, just like you said, he's entering his 11th year, so turning 31. And I don't think age is messing him up whatsoever. He keeps being good. I'd be excited to draft Mike Evans this year. I would do it. Please, whoever's in Division 2, don't listen to this part.
I say now the divisions have been drawn, so now you have to pay attention, right? But I like Baker Mayfield as a quarterback. He's exciting to watch. I think him and Mike Evans. Mike Evans, you've got again the reliability. He was a top tier quarterback. He was or receiver. He was the number one receiver for a while, and I think he's kind of earned that trust until you see otherwise. And I haven't seen such a significant drop off that I'm like, okay, like his best days are behind him, kind of thing. So I'm with you, Matt. I think he's probably got another year or two behind him or ahead of him before he start to talk like that. I'm kind of excited to see where he goes this year in terms of production wise. But yeah, not concerned at all with Baker Mayfield. He's had a few injuries before, but nothing too significant to where I'm concerned right now. But yeah, I think he's a solid pickup.
Agreed. All right, this next guy is real fun. It's Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. Got it right this time. And I really like him. I want to see, this happen again in year two. I think that the price kind of like at his ceiling, truthfully. Obviously he may have potential, but with the crowded receiving core of addition of Diggs, you still got my boy Tank Dell there. You know, there's a lot of mouths to feed. And yes, I do believe in the Stroud. I'm on the Stroud train, but at the same time, Nico Collins is going to have some, I think, targets taken away from him. He only had 109 last year, and with Diggs is going to be hungry and at least gobble up some of the slot targets. So when they're trying to dink and dunk under, he's going to take away from this, and this is where I can kind of see where if he falls at like 90 targets or even 100 or 99 targets, you're going to see the production go down. There's a potential for to come down. He only had 8 last year. If he finishes with 6, there's a possibility that like he just doesn't live up to his draft price of going off the board at pick 30 overall and the wide receiver 14. I'd rather wait around and just go and get Tank Dell, who I feel is in the same boat, but also has the upside as Nico. And he's about what at this point? Another like 10 picks off. So yeah, I'd rather rock with Tank Dell than Nico Collins at this point. It's like, feel better because I could wait for Mike Evans. I could draft a running back around this point. So ultimately, I'm just passing, not because I don't believe in the talent or anything of the sort. I'm just pretty much more on the point that there's just better guys later that are a little less riskier.
Do
Okay.
you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go. Awkward silence. No, I agree. So Nico, he's a young talent. I think he's very athletic, very talented. He's got a promising future, but Matt, you're stealing my notes, and I gotta stop editing on Google Docs because I'm pretty sure you're just copying my stuff at this point. I think in something like Fantasy Turf War, he's not. You're not going to get away with letting him go later on, right? And so you have to, you'd have to pick up Tank. If it were, like my family league where it's not as intense, he's not quite name recognition to where you're like, oh, I've got to pick up that guy. He might just pop up on like the recommended pick to where you could probably get away with letting him go, to the next round kind of thing. I like him. I like his talent, but he's kind of unproven to me. And on that one, I would rather buy low than invest where he's kind of at on the draft pick. And if I'm wrong, then I think I'd probably find better value. At least I'd feel better about the value I'm getting at that point. So I think not knocking him for his talent. I think just the price for him is too steep.
No, I agree. I fully agree with Dave. Now you're taking my notes, Corey.
No, they're
That
Matt's notes. I mean, my notes. Oh crap.
that he doesn't have enough like name recognition for me to want to go out of my way to pick him unless it's kind of like in your situation of like what kind of league am I drafting in, family versus like this one where I'm actually now starting to think about it and I'm like, am I scared? Maybe. But uh I mean, we already talked about Stephon Diggs. Nico has a higher paid out contract than Stephon Diggs does. So obviously he's going to be most likely having more playing time than Stephon Diggs. Would I draft him over Stephon Diggs? Yes. Would I draft him over somebody lower on this list that we're still to get to? No. No. He does not. He doesn't excite me a whole lot, but I also don't think it would be a bad option if, depending on the league that you're in. Watch me have Nico Collins in this league at this now at this point talking about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think time will tell. We could be standing here at the end of the season, and if you said he was a top 5 receiver at the end of the year because the other guys just didn't deliver, I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked, but I would rather again kind of be that year late than take the leap at this point in the draft.
Yeah. All great. Now let's move into Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers, who I feel will not be at wide receiver 13 for much longer and 28th overall. I think he's going to start creeping up into the top 12 conversation very soon, the second that Brandon Ayuk gets the trade. And, one of the many reasons why I feel this is there's going to be 105 vacated targets once Brandon Ayuk leaves. He had 105 targets last year. And also 7 touchdowns last year. Now that's going to be distributed obviously amongst Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, and now Deebo Samuel. But Deebo Samuel also had a fair amount of targets last year. He had 89 targets, which wasn't the most. So if we add 20 targets to 30 targets for him, that is a fantastic number. You're looking 130 targets. The reception should come up and he should cross 1,000 yards, and hopefully he benefits and takes I don't know 3 or 4 touchdowns away from that. And we're talking about a wide receiver 1. The upside is there. Now the thing that sucks about Deebo Samuel is he just has had a mixed match of how many games he can play. 2019 played 15, 2020 played 7, 2021 played 16, then 13, then 15. I like the 16, 13, 15 run. If he plays 13 games and manages to get 100 targets and 7 touchdowns or 10 touchdowns and finishes with almost 1,000 yards, which is totally doable, you pretty much have crushed it. Now the thing is, it's also could be the caveat of 2022 where he's super disappointing. But when he's on the field, he's going to be amazing. So the overall the total stats aren't going to be as impressive as the game by game and the game log of each and every game. So, it is what it is. But even if he plays 15 games and gets the added production, we're going to see a very special season from Deebo Samuel. Again, with all the talk going, and just give you a little inside baseball to where I have him ranked right now because of the news. Deebo Samuel is moving all the way up to my number 9 wide receiver on the gear. So I am pretty high on him, and I think it's only going to get better.
All right. Well, apparently I have no value added here since you just keep taking my notes. But no, I agree. It's just basic logic, right? Someone leaves the team, they have a certain amount of volume that they bring with them, and if they leave, someone has to fill that role. And where does that go? It's probably going to go to your known quantities. So, like you said, your Christian McCaffrey. And so I don't know if I'm all in on any 49er except for maybe Christian McCaffrey, but. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I'm good with it. I think if you could draft him today to lock in the value, you're banking on the fact that he would be top 10 once Ayuk makes the trade, if he makes the trade, and that would kind of be the risk to it. But I think either way, at that point, I'd feel good about him at 13. I'd definitely feel good about him if he goes up to 10, and I feel good about it all the way around. But that does not mean I'm supporting the 49ers. Just to be clear.
Just to put that out there. We're we're putting that out there just to make sure. Um, no, I agree. I really like Debo Samuel. Again, looking at his stats and looking at the fact that he just has an outrageous amount of touchdowns for to be number 13 on the list. I literally have a little star that says wish he was higher. I also have stars next to people's names that I intend to look at, I guess.
For the
When
draft.
drafting. Yeah, when
What are
actually
those names?
drafting. I'm not
Yes, it
revealing.
shows the list.
No. No. I have to at least try to win. Come on now. And he may or may not have a star next to his name. But if Matt likes him, I've added a star next to the name just
Look, as long as
just
So
when
so
we're
I
doing
know
the
what I'm
draft,
doing.
as long as when we're doing the
Yeah,
draft,
just
Matt doesn't show up on your stream, then I think we'll be all right. But if I see Matt in his glasses and his New York Yankees hat and all that stuff, we're gonna have some commissioner problems here. I
Oh,
also
right.
I wanted to circle back that I said I'm not a 49ers fan, but the thumbnail for tomorrow night's show is 49ers colors. So I was like, oh, that's subliminal messaging, I guess. So there's that.
Yeah. Um. Oh man. But it's funny too. Like there is this other caveat, I guess, to the 49ers that all teams that lost the Super Bowl also, don't have as a successful year as the next year. But I feel like this team is one of those teams that are going to break the rules. You look at like teams that have just been great for so long that just lost the Super Bowl, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs or the Patriots, and yes, I'm also mentioning Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, and I'm not saying Brock Purdy is around that, but I am saying Christian McCaffrey is that good, who is the driving source of that, and just the offense in general is just a force. So like I feel like the system is too good to be unsuccessful. So that's why I'm on this. So all those kind of things kind of just come into play when we're talking about this guy. Let's move on because we are crunching down here, and we're talking about Chris Olave, the New Orleans Saints, and I am just he is somebody I wish would just do more, but I feel like he's very limited since he has your boy Cory, Derek Carr throwing him the ball, and I feel like that just leaves it open to just not having a great season. You don't get enough car insurance when the car gets hurt and just decides to ruin your whole year in the MVP year. Yes, Diggs. And on top of that, um, I just feel like the team isn't as good as they used to be. They pretty much just dump off the ball to Kamara as much. So there is a limited ceiling of him, and him going at this price at a wide receiver 12 and 23 off the board is, I feel, a little rich for my blood. I wish he would fall just a tad. If he was more around like the wide receiver 15 or 16, I'd feel a little bit better about it. I might be able to, justify the pick a little bit more. But if he's my wide receiver 2 or even my 1 at that matter, it's pretty risky at that point. I'm just like, I kind of would prefer to go with another option. There is plenty of better options, honestly, and there's guys that are in this conversation that I feel are going to be creeping up, like a Cooper Cup and things like that, where I'd much rather have them with the stability and the knowledge of who they are versus an upside play of Chris Olave, who, don't get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing all over him. He still is a fantastic talent. It's just the upside and where that team and the touchdown abilities and you know how is that gameplay going to affect what his actual fantasy outcome is. you know, I think it's very limited and capped.
I'm sorry.
All right, just address the elephant in the room. Matt said poo poo, and Lauren laughed. So there's that.
Why did I laugh so hard? Because he just casually was like, "I'm not poo-pooing all over him," but and I was like, "No, he kind of
has
is
young
though. He
children
really
in the
was.
house.
He were
Poo pooing
poo-pooing
and
all over
potty
Chris
time is a
Olave."
thing.
I thought this was a family friendly show. Okay, so you know, if you saw me out on the street, you know I do not say poo poo. Except maybe when I'm watching Coco Melon with my 2-year-old. But uh,
Kill you.
Fair enough.
you know,
Fair enough.
you catch me on the street, and my it's a little bit different.
If you catch him on the street, he'll be watching Bluey while he's walking down the street with his kids. So
Exactly.
I say that because I do the same thing.
Exactly.
So like, I get it, Matt. You don't have to defend yourself. I understand. Poo poo.
Hey, I just thought it was funny.
Jeez.
There you go. Not to poo-poo on Chris Olave too hard, but I I'm not too excited about him. Just him entering his third year as a Saint. Again, not trying to be biased in me saying this because I am from Atlanta and the Saints are not so Saint to us. I don't know. I don't feel a lot of like security in the idea of drafting him again because he is so young, but also the fact that like the Saints aren't really doing too much just in general. Maybe that will change this year. I just with my bias as well as just the excitement of lack of excitement, I guess that the Saints have kind of delivered recently or recent years. I'm I would stay away.
Yep, totally agree. I'm out, and I'll be quick about it. So with me, you got the sophomore slump. You've got kind of a lack of talent around him. Carr is not as great as he used to be, so that's because he's not on the Raiders anymore. So it's just naturally not as great. And then the defense is they get used to you after your rookie season, so they've had time to acclimate to you. They know how to play you better. So I think all around, I'm kind of just out on the Saints. Like you said, there's just not a whole lot going on there that's making me intrigued. But yeah.
Fair enough.
All right.
But this last guy here, I think, is probably the most volatile, fantasy ending or fantasy outcome out there, and that's Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. And it's one of those things where, like, okay, there are a lot of things need to go right. One thing that has gone right for the Falcons is they improved their offensive line. And then the second thing is signing Kirk Cousins. Those are two good things. But the thing is, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury. What is he going to look like? Also, too, you don't really want to play Kirk Cousins when you're in a primetime game because we all know he's going to suck. So you got like at least 2 to 3 games that where you're just low. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also, throwing the haterade on Lauren. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm slouching back here. You can't see me.
so on top of that note, what he's been able to do though with his lackluster of a team and just you know a terrible situation in general has been pretty impressive. He got lathered in targets last year, 110 targets, and still came down with 69 receptions. And I'm gonna say too, probably out of those 40 missed, receptions, I'm going to say that, half of those, if not more, were uncatchable. Still came down with 905 yards, only had 2 touchdowns, but was Atlanta really scoring last year? No. I could have scored more than Atlanta's whole team. So it's just one of those things where I think, the team taking a step forward with all of these, additions should be good. It's just a matter of can Kirk Cousins jive with the team? Can they take a step forward? And is Kirk Cousins healthy? Is all the things that are going to just be good.
Yeah, and for me, he's one of those names that's like you see it pop up, right? And obviously you do your research for the show, and you see it pop up, and it's just like I barely remember who this guy is, and then you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I got you. But yeah, I think you're right. The uncertainty there with the quarterback. Look, Cousins has talent. He's also, like you said, coming off a major injury, so you never know how that's going to change the player into again receiver quarterback dependencies and how that relationship goes. It makes me very hesitant, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of inconsistency there, but. I can see why someone would rank him at 11. I think I'm just kind of holding off, but The question I would have there then is Debo Samuel or Drake London.
Oh,
Debo Samuel.
that's Debo all day.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, you're talking about making a 2-person drop. So it's significant enough to I think you got to pay attention, but not. Yeah, I think it's there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm Drake London doesn't excite me. Again, being from Atlanta, I should have more of an opinion about him, but he is entering his third year, hasn't done too much to like win me over, honestly. I was gonna actually ask if y'all had the option to choose between Drake London or Chris Olave, who would you choose?
Mm, that one tough. At that point, I'm probably going to go Olave though.
I would probably pick up Butker.
All right. All right.
No, I'd probably go Olave just because I know what the quarterback situation is there. And I think there's probably more stability in that choice. Also, the Saints didn't lose 28-3.
There it is. I was waiting for it. There it is.
Yeah, buddy. It comes down to this too, right? Like, so, like you want the safest option when you're talking about like a wide receiver one or any position of one, right? And I don't feel the safety of London, and if I do pick him, I better have a strong two behind him, and that's where it's just like, okay, maybe if I'm on the turn, it's like London, and then there's not really a running back I want out there, and I'll just go and pick up another, strong wide receiver, then that's the build I'll do where I can feel comfortable drafting London because he's not, the true backbone of my wide receiver core. Then I can kind of do it. But like if I'm going, okay, cool, I did running back, wide receiver, and then I'm going back to running back or waiting the couple of rounds to go and get somebody else. That's where I'm just like, I'll pass.
Yeah, it's interesting too, especially when you look at like a fantasy turf war perspective, 16-team league. So of all the folks that we talked about tonight, then let's assume that this pick would have to be your number one receiver on your team. Of
Mm-hmm.
11 to 20, who's your guy?
I know.
Okay, go.
Probably.
Yes, you in the
I'm
middle,
gonna
who's hosting the
go.
show.
I'm gonna. I'm gonna go. If I have the option, Debo Samuel, and if I don't have the option for him, I'm going Mike Evans. But I feel like Debo will get picked up before Mike Evans will. But I like the security, like we talked about, that Mike Evans kind of gives you, as well as the fact that, like, again, he hasn't been injured a significant amount, or yeah, I mean the security of it. But Debo Samuel excites me more for like his potential. So yeah, I'd go Debo.
Yeah.
It's Debo for me too. But my second one is actually Waddle. The fact that he has the volatility and the prospect to finish as a wide receiver one. At that point, I'll probably roll with him. It's probably a better price too, and he's going to be there a little later in the round. If I'm picking earlier, I'm not looking at either of these guys.
Yeah, I would say Waddle would have been my pick too, just because there's less uncertainty. You know what you're getting there, and it looks like a bright future for the season for the Dolphins. So that's probably who I'd go with.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this week. So thank you so much for joining us. And make sure you're following along on all the social medias and sign up on the website. Our social medias are quite literally just the company name. So Fantasy Turf War on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts.
Nailed it.
Um, did I miss one?
No, I said
Or are
nailed it.
you? Okay, awesome. Awesome. Yay. Okay. So, Matt, where can people find you, or do you want to shout anything out?
You can find me at Matthew underscore on A at wherever you may X, Twitter, or everything of the sort. You can find me at Locked On Fantasy Baseball on Instagram. You can find me on you could DM me on either platform, and I got you for fantasy football advice. It's crazy. We're actually like what 3 weeks out from draft season. So, if you had the questions, reach out. I got you.
So yeah, we are approaching draft season. So for the at least for the redraft leagues, at least those dynasty guys have been going for a while. So
Hmm.
oh well, you
But
can
yeah,
find me. Yeah, you can find me on
Right?
Fantasy Turf War and all that stuff, and at Cory NC on Twitter, X, whatever it is. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend. So if you want to follow me along, especially if you're gonna meet us out there, then let me know. We'll try and sync up for a picture, handshake, drink, whatever it may be, and it should be a good time.
Awesome. And of course, I'm Lauren Hill, and you can find me many places. Instagram is literally my full government name. It's lauren.elizabeth.hill. X is lhill716. You can find me on LinkedIn if you care to. Just my full name. That's about it. So be excellent to each other, be kind, and we will see you tomorrow.
Alrighty, see ya.